Hello, everybody. Today I would like to talk about creating instance of classes using Java reflection, meaning that we can create instance without the use of the new operator. Let's see a few examples. For that, I've created three classes. One is user, representing a common user that we can use for managing users that access an application or do a login, like using username and password. I've created a user service. It's a very simple service that has typical operations related with users. In our case, just create user and get user, and the private one that can generate a password. It's simple. It's not the behavior of these methods that are important for our lesson, but I like to create cases similar to the ones or closely related with production code. So I don't like those figure examples and things like that, because we learn the technique, but we don't have a clear view of how to apply it in a business use case. And usually business use case, it thinks about users, products, business, DAOs, and things like that. So I like to create these kind of examples. So again, we have this class user service, and we can inject a user's DAO, meaning that it was or it is a class that could access a database, but it's not our case. In our case, we just create a user when we get the user and return an instance of this class. Or when we save the user, we just do a system out, say, okay, hello, I create the user. So, but at the end of the day, it's closely related with the business case, because we can instantiate a user service. We create a user's DAO, inject on the constructor, and then when we create the create user will access the create or the save user of the user's DAO, which, by the way, just do a system out, but it's, as I said, more related with a real use case. And then I have a main class with a method main, okay, with four use cases that I like to show you how to create constructors. So let's go to the examples. Okay, the first one is just list the constructors of a class, and the code is something like this. We just get the user, the class, the class information, the reflection class information from the class user service, doing like this. We can use, as if you saw my previous videos, you can use an instance. In that case, you will do something like get class. But okay, I can show you. Okay, we have here users, something like this. If you didn't see my user service, user, let's say something like this, new user service, and after this, if I can always have this get class. Okay, it's the same thing, but usually if you are not interested in the instance, we are only interested in the definition part of the class. This method of using the class name dot class, it's more appropriate. Okay, so now we can get the constructors using the user class, this one, and we can call get declared constructors. The get declared constructors gets all the constructors that are declared in the class user service. Okay. There are another method which is without the get declared that I mentioned in a previous video, and in that case the private constructors, for instance, are not returned, and even other constructors from other class, parent class, can be displayed also. It's a different approach. This one, when we use declared, we want to collect all the internal information, meaning that probably we don't want to use the reflection for a business use case. Maybe we are building a pattern like comment pattern or a plugin or a framework, and in those cases we want to use the get declared constructors, because we want the private, the internal information, the sensible information to be exposed, so we can work with it. Okay, so but in our case we get the declared constructors, then we have a loop, and for each constructor we just print the constructors found. Okay, let's play. Okay, just wait a few seconds. Okay, and we can see that there are three constructors, and we can check here. We have this constructor here, user service, that receives two parameters, and we can see here the parameter users DAO, and the password prefix. It's something that we prefix any password that will be generated, which is of the type string. Then we have another constructor which is private that just receives a user's DAO. It is this one here. Okay, and another one without parameters, like this, a default constructor, but it will create a user's DAO here and create the default value for the password prefix. It's not relevant what the constructors are doing, but it's useful to know. Okay, but we have three constructors, and what distinguish each one of them are the data types of the parameters. Like you know, it's constructor overloading, similar to the method overloading. Okay, this is how to list constructors. Let's comment now, and let's go and try to create one of the class now using the default constructor. Okay, so we want to create an instance of user service without using the new operator, and then we want to call the get user. If the instance was created, I can call this method and it will be returned to me a user created by this DAO. Okay, let's see the flow. So we have this get user that use the user DAO, passing the username as a parameter, and user DAO on the get user just instantiates a user with a password, with the word password. Okay. So let's see the method here. How can we do it? So again, we get the user class. It's always like this when we want to use reflection. And now we get a get declared constructor singular. Okay. If you check here, you can see this is plural constructors constructor. And when we call this get declared constructor without parameters, we mean that we want the default constructor, the constructor without parameters. Okay. So if that constructor exists, it can be the case that it doesn't exist. For instance, if we create this constructor and, for instance, this one, and we forget to put this one, the default constructor will not exist, and an exception will be thrown. So in this case, we get the declared constructor singular. Okay, never forget this. And then it's just as easy as this. We just call the method new instance, and it will create an instance of the class user service. Since we are using here the generic data type, it's not necessary to do a cast here because the new instance knows which data type should be returned, and in our case will be user service. So this will construct an instance without using the new operator as we know it. So let's execute this and check if that's true. And we can see that, okay, it created an instance because we call the method get user with success without any kind of null pointer exception. Okay, this is how we create a class without the new operator with this new instance. Of course, first we have to get a specific constructor using the get declared constructor, and we can use other parameters here as we will see next. Okay, so let's now see an example with a constructor with parameters, and in our case we want the create user service user DAO with one parameter. Let's see here, and then after the instance is created, we want to call the create user. Okay, and let's see, it's not this one. We'll just close it. It's this one. So we are sending an instance of users DAO. We are just creating users DAO using the standard way with a new, but it is possible to create, of course, using reflection, and it will be the subject of a future video where I will teach how to build a light one, okay, a light dependency injection framework. It's not difficult. Of course, there are some challenges, but it's possible to check, for instance, what are the parameters of the constructor, and recursively try to find these data types, and again try to create them, and if they have a specific constructed parameters, again try to find them. It is called dependency injection inversion of control, commonly used by frameworks such as, for instance, Spring Boot. Okay, but it's more advanced concept. We are first on the basics, so let's first learn how to create a constructor. Okay, so create an instance using a constructor. So again, now we have, it's the same code, as we saw before. But now it's get declared constructor singular, but I'm telling I need this data type. I want you to find a constructor with one parameter, and the parameter is of data type users DAO. Okay, like this one. We could put something more generic, for instance. It will be very fun if you could do something like this. Users DAO get class. It will be the same thing. It's a kind of dependency injection because I'm receiving in the parameter a class, and I'm getting the class. I'm asking for the get declared constructor to find a constructor that fits this parameter. So you now start to understand how to implement the dependency injection framework. It's not as easy as this, but it's the first step. Okay. So okay. Again, users DAO, but here I'm using not the variable or the parameter, but the class. Okay. Now, since this constructor, if you look into it, this one is private. Don't forget to use the set accessible true. Otherwise, you will receive an exception saying you cannot access private constructors. The same exception that is thrown when you try to access a private method or a private field using reflection. You always should use this constructor set accessible true. Okay, it's something that exists in several places in the reflection. Okay, and then again, new instance, and of course, since the constructor needs one parameter, we should pass as a parameter one instance of that parameter. Okay, let's play. Okay, and again, it's a different one. The output José 2, which is this one, and a generated password. Okay, you can check why. And see when you receive the DAO, you have the password, which is this prefix here. Okay, and when we call the method create user generates a password, okay, and instantiate user and calls the save user. And as you know, users don't save user, just do a simple system out. Okay, and now let's see the other constructor with more than one parameter. It's the same concept, okay, but now with more than one parameter. I'm using this prefix now, a completely different one, so we can see the difference. And I'm passing a user's DAO, and here now it's the other one, and you can see it's the same thing. But now when I'm calling the get declared constructor, of course I need to say that I want to use the user's DAO and the other parameter string class, which is this constructor here. Okay, that needs two parameters, and again two parameters, and again call the new instance with the instance uses DAO and the prefix. In our case will be this crazy super password prefix. Okay, and it will create an instance, and after that we just create user like this one, but now with this value. Of course, here we don't need, like the other one, the set accessible, since this constructor is public, as you can see. Okay, the only one that was private, it's this one. And let's play. Okay, and again, choose a 3 with this super password, very difficult to crack. Okay, unless you see it displayed, and then will be easy. So this is the basic reflection mechanisms of constructors. If you look into my previous video, I explained how to get values from or get information from a class, how to get information about fields and set and get values on the fields, the same for methods and invoke methods, and now how to create things. And so I know, and I think we have a good base to start to create something very useful and try to explore how popular frameworks use Java reflection. And I think it will be a great thing to learn because it will make us more professionals and understand better the frameworks we use. And when something happens like an error or a difficult thing to troubleshoot, if we know or understand somehow how these frameworks are built, maybe we can get better results in our troubleshooting and debug. That happens, as you know, every day for any developer. See you on my next video. I hope you like it. Don't forget to like or subscribe give me some motivation to keep developing these videos.